Hey everyone, my name is Allie, and I did my nutrition intervention project over an article that dives into early time restricted eating, otherwise known as eTRE, on weight and fat loss. And so the primary points I want to target, or I will be targeting in my presentation, will be how eTRE possesses benefits for managing the continuously skyrocketing obesity rates in the United States. Here we go. And as I'm sure, as you guys all know, nearly half the United States is considered obese, with approximately 41.9% of Americans classifying as obese. In this statistic, the highest rates of obesity occur amongst the Black and Latino community. The Black community accounts for approximately 49.9% of the obese population, and the Latino population accounts for approximately 45.4 respectfully is for respectfully. Um, sorry, and then 300,000 Americans die from obesity annually in the United States, and a whopping 4 million die globally. Stemming from obesity, many health conditions such as high blood pressure, high LDL cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and coronary heart disease contribute to the mortality rate of obesity. And it doesn't come too much as a surprise that obesity rates are continuously increasing due to our lifestyle and then the overprocessing of foods. And honestly, just a desire to consume high calorie, low nutritionally dense foods. And then in this example here, or in this image here that I put on the slide, you can see from 1987 to 2021, we nearly doubled the obesity rates in America. And also, it's more so in the South and Central United States where we can see the highest rates of obesity. Because of the increasing prevalence of obesity, many Americans do seek weight loss solutions between pharmaceuticals, lifestyle, and surgical procedures. And so in this slide, so the left side, I have highlighted the most common solutions I found on the web. I also wanted to highlight the quotations around solutions because it's not, or the solution for obesity should ideally circumvent diet. And so it is diet that primarily guides weight loss, and any additional solution is just typically last resort and shouldn't be ideally seeked out. And then so therefore on the left side, I have some of the lifestyle changes that can indicate consumption of protein and water to help weight loss. And we also see a calorie deficit and reduce saturated and trans fats. And then on this right side, I found the most common pharmaceutical medications, including Wegovy, Contrave, phentermine, and then surgical procedures such as gastric bypass and sleeve gastrectomy. And usually the procedures are used for people who can't necessarily control as easily as other people for their lifestyle, their diet, or just take medications such as Wegovy, Contrave, is usually the patients who feel or don't have the the ability to do this or are lacking ability to do these two. Um, and so in America, we also have a super high accessibility to healthcare relative to other countries. And so we often seek the easier route being this right side. And so what we currently know about eTRE, we know that eating earlier in the day surpasses the desire to eat. And then our circadian rhythms also peak early in the morning. And so, therefore, we can metabolize and use that energy we consume more efficiently than at night. Um, eTRE has also been seen to potentially lower blood pressure. And then with our circadian rhythms, we have a higher sensitivity to insulin and then thermic effect of food. And then at night, the energy that we consume doesn't necessarily get utilized, so that can lead us to feeling less full and then cause us to feel a desire to eat. And so to segue into the research article that I chose, the purpose of the research article served to highlight the effects of eTRE on blood pressure, weight and fat loss, glucose, and plasma lipids. The primary hypothesis of the article was that eTRE has a greater significant effect than a 12 plus hour fasting for weight loss and fat loss. The 12-hour fasting served as a comparison for eTRE and to have a better visualization of its effect. In the experiment they conducted, 656 people were screened and randomly selected for the trial. From the 656, 90 participants were randomly selected. And then of these participants, um, the majority were obese or overweight with an average BMI of around 39.6. The average age of the participants were 43. The majority of the participants were female, and the majority of the participants were also white. And then in these participants, they were then split into two groups for the weight loss trial. The first group was eTRE, and the second group was a 12 plus hour fasting group. And so here is the experiment in detail. So on this left side, you can see the eTRE treatment, and on the right, we can see the fasting treatment. And so in the experiment, it was a 14-week time period in which all the participants had to endure a treatment in which they were put into a 500 calorie deficit from their resting energy expenditure via the weight loss clinic at the University of Alabama in Birmingham Hospital. In the eTRE group, all of the participants had to eat within the window of around 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And sometimes throughout the trial, it wasn't necessarily exactly at 7 a.m. or exactly at 3 p.m. A lot of the times it was just in that window when everyone were to eat breakfast. So when the eTRE and the fasting groups were to eat breakfast, they would eat around the same time. And then the only difference is that they would cut off at exactly 3 p.m. And then they also had to do this 6 times a week. So the majority of the week. And then on the other treatment, the fasting treatment, they had to eat in the morning, ideally around 7 a.m. And like I said, this was like subjective to change. And then they were also required to wait at minimum 12 hours for their next meal. And then, with this being said, both participants or both groups had to endure a 60-minute counseling session with a registered dietitian. And then they had to do that weekly and exercise approximately 75 to 150 minutes per week. And so at the end of the 14 weeks, the final results of the experiment yielded a greater significant effect of eTRE versus fasting for weight loss. There was a limitation in the study in that they originally wanted um, to take in consideration the blood glucose and then the plasma lipids, but they didn't have um, enough supplies or the equipment to do so. And so that was a limitation in the study. However, there were significant effects of the eTRE. And so the results showed that they had a much lower diastolic pressure. They lost 2.3 kilograms relative to the control group, which was the fasting group. There was no evidence for selective or lean mass loss. And lastly, the group had a decreasing presence of fatigue and depression throughout the 14 weeks. And so, that being said, from the research article, we can conclude that eTRE is advantageous for weight loss and therefore a potential treatment for obesity or obese patients. And so, although we can conclude this, we also need to conduct further research with it with a larger sample size because we only had 90 participants in this trial. It would be much advantageous to have maybe a sample size of 300 or more trials just so we can confirm these findings. But additionally, I also want to re-emphasize the importance of having a well-balanced diet and it being most superior, um, and it being the most superior factor in weight loss and general health. And so these are my references I used for my presentation. And thank you guys so much. That concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.